Admiral Bauer, thank you very much. I'm glad to see you again on TV Rain. First of all, I was wondering, what do you think about the statement and decisions that have been made by the Secretary General and NATO members on Ukraine? Ukraine is, as we understand, disappointed. They think that this decision is modest. They were expecting something more, considering their membership in NATO. So what is the reason for that? Is that because of the threat coming from Moscow?
The reason is that the Allies have now agreed on a considerable package for Ukraine. And it consists of three things. It's practical cooperation and how we go on a road of interoperability between NATO and Ukraine. That is one. The second one is on the NATO-Ukraine Council, which allows us to talk on equal level between allies and Ukraine and take decisions. And the third one is on the removal of the membership action plan. And I think that is a major step for the alliance towards Ukraine. So I think it's not nothing. I think it is a considerable step. And that is what the decision is, and that's what the Secretary General explained.
Do you think that Ukraine is more secure after this, considering the war which is going on, full-scale war in Ukraine, but still, does it give Ukraine any guarantees for security?
If Ukraine becomes a member, and that is also, again, restated by the Allies, that Ukraine will become a member. So then, if they become a member, then you have the security guarantees that is part of our alliance. In a war, there is, of course, it's a difficult discussion on whether they are secure. I mean, they are in a war, and that is a very difficult situation for them. That is the reason why NATO continues to support Ukraine for as long as it takes. And that's a huge package until now, 150 billion euros, consisting of financial help, weapons, ammunition, training. And it continues. That doesn't stop. It continues for as long as necessary. And that is also extremely important, because if Russia would win the war, then Ukraine will lose basically its country. And therefore, the discussion on a membership is most important to make sure that Ukraine prevails, that Ukraine will win this war. And so then we can further talk about the road towards the membership.
Considering the war, and you're a military man, you know better. So there were a lot of hopes on this counteroffensive of Ukraine. Right now, there are experts who are not sure that it is as much successful as a lot of people were expecting, of course, including Ukrainians. How would you evaluate the situation on the ground?
I think people have to understand that a counteroffensive is extremely difficult. We're talking about serious defensive works set up by the Russians. It's deep minefields, it's huge obstacles, and then in 3 different lines. In some areas, it's a couple of kilometers. In other areas, it's 30 kilometers. So we are talking about serious defensive works that were set up by the Russians. And the Ukrainians have to fight through that before they enter into their territory that is then they can retake from the Russians. So this is about a difficult operation. It requires an enormous courage by the Ukrainians, and it will take time because if you have to go through a minefield, you cannot run through. You have to be careful. You have to make sure that you do it in the right way. If we look back to the Second World War and when the Allies entered France in June 1944, it took them 7 to 9 weeks actually to break through the German lines. And so it is probably for a lot of people, there was an over-expectation that this would go very, very quickly and that it would be easy. It is not easy. It is dangerous. People are dying. And so we can only continue to support Ukraine in their very difficult job by the weapons, by the training, and by all the other support they need. And that's what the Allies are doing.
what are your expectations on the counteroffensive? Do you have any timeline in mind? I understand that it's not easy to say, but
war is very difficult to predict because it's two countries with a lot of people that all have brains, and they will always make a plan. They will execute that plan. The other nation will look at it, will respond to it, will do something against it. So it is always a question of action and reaction, and it's very difficult to predict. The one thing that we see is that the Ukrainians have a lot of courage, that the Ukrainians are well trained by the 15 nations that support Ukraine, that they have modern weapon systems, and that they are now executing the counteroffensive in a way that is seen by them as the best way. So they, first and foremost, are trying to find the places where the Russians are weakest. That is part of what they are doing. And at the same time, as I said earlier, it is difficult. It will take time. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people killed and wounded as a result on both sides, but also, of course, on the sides of the Ukrainians.
Ukraine can win.
Ukraine can win, and they are, I think, well prepared in terms of the training and the weapon systems, and the continued support that all of the nations have promised and again have stated during the summit. So we will continue doing that. That is the one thing that is most important, so that they know that if they continue their fight, that we will support them.
Just one, to clarify, one question about going back to Stoltenberg's statements and membership action plan and so on and so forth. Do you think that there is a chance that if Ukraine gets closer to NATO, then Vladimir Putin takes extremely dangerous actions, including, I don't know, using of nuclear weapons or something like that? I mean, I have a feeling that this is one of the reasons why there was no big decision on Ukraine's membership. Would you agree with that?
I think in the military, as we jokingly sometimes say, we do not like to plan on our feelings. I think it is extremely important to look at what all the nations in this conflict are doing. We see that Russia is doing what it thinks it needs to do. We see there's a lot of rhetoric from Russia on all sorts of topics, and so far we have not seen, for example, in an earlier discussion on the nuclear rhetoric, we haven't seen any actions from the Russians that would require us to change our posture. So we will always look in the military on what we see, what intelligence shows in terms of the actions on the Russian side, and then we can support Ukraine in this case. When allies see things on the Russian side, they can continue to support Ukraine, and then you take action. But it's not based on feelings; it is based on what we see.
So you don't see the immediate threat coming from Russia, considering nuclear weapons.
At this moment, there is rhetoric, and we will always take it seriously.
Absolutely.
And serious, but at this moment, we do not see things which force us to change our posture.
Would you expect any crucial, important decisions, statements tomorrow? And what do you think the meaning of this Ukraine-NATO Council can be? Why is it important, just to explain to the viewers?
Well, I would like to also talk about a very important discussion and decisions that we took today. One of them is that there is now an agreement amongst all allies on all the plans that we have worked on for a long time, and that basically allow us to be effective in terms of our deterrence and defense against Russia and the terror groups. That's the two threats NATO is facing. And so that is a huge effort from all on the military side to make those plans. And then you will see that it will have consequences for our training in the near future, on the capabilities that we require to actually do that work in a good way. So that is a very, very important decision, together with, of course, the fact that Sweden now will become a member. So those are two things that happened yesterday and today. and it's part of a very historic summit.
No, just one thing. When you talk about your European security, there was a statement by the president of Lithuania, by the way, suggesting that there would be a good idea to build the military bases across the border of Russian Federation. Would you support this idea?
Well, I don't think we have seen a tasker in that sense from the heads of state and government in terms of to look at this. Mm-hmm. What we looked at for Madrid was how do we change our posture given the situation in the war in Ukraine. That resulted in the 8 battle groups along the eastern flank. Battle groups that can be beefed up to a brigade size. Now 4 nations have shown in the last couple of months that they can actually do that. It was UK in Estonia, it is Germany in Lithuania, United States in Poland, and France in Romania. Uh-huh. And so the mechanism works. And there's been additional offers from Germany in Lithuania and Canada in Latvia. Okay. And that is good. That is the result of more discussions between the nations. So we always welcome that. But for now, I have no indications that that we are going to build fortresses along the eastern flank.
What do you think this war is really about? What are the big goals, in your opinion?
Well, I think there's been a lot of Russia used a lot of reasons why they invaded Ukraine.
Yeah.
And
including enlargement of NATO.
Enlargement of NATO, fighting Nazism.
Yeah.
So there was all sorts of things. I think in the end it was about something else. It was not about a threat to their security. It was that they fear the most the fact that the Ukrainians are more and more becoming a truly democratic nation that want freedom, that want to be able to decide for their own future, that they do not want to be forced by anyone else when they think about that future. So this is about freedom, this is about democracy, this is about sovereignty, this is about the ability to decide on your own future what you want that future to be. And I think if that the Russians were fearing that if that would work, and it is working in Ukraine, then it might also start to affect the people in Russia. And that is I believe, the most important reason why they wanted to do this, and they failed. Because the Ukrainians are fighting for their freedom, for the democracy, for all the things I talked about, their sovereignty and their existence. And so the Russians failed because what they tried to prevent is actually happening.
Yeah, and
it is a Ukraine that as a nation is becoming stronger and stronger, that NATO has become stronger, that the allies amongst each other are more united. So everything the Russian government or the Russian leaders were fearing is actually happening.
We operated in Russia for 12 years and the government tried to get rid of us 3 times.
We had to leave, forced out of the country by new repressive laws after the first week of the war. Our freedom crushed by the authorities.
Мы временно приостанавливаем работу телеканала.
We survived, started working from Europe, and now we are watched by millions of people every day.
There's no other independent news channel in Russian. We have now decided to tell the truth about Russia in English as well.
So that you could get news about Russia, the war in Ukraine, and Russian society directly from the source.
We want to tell you firsthand what is really happening in Russia. Subscribe to TVRain Newsroom on YouTube and let's take a look at our future together.